King.
Is your daughter a Swiftie?
She is, and I don't know why. I have no idea why. There's no explanation for that, but I'm listening to her songs to learn because, you know, when you have kids, you gotta be where they are.
I saw yesterday, the average price with cost of hotels, driving, whatever, is $1,300 a person with clothes
It's
and
not that
everything.
bad. It's
Yeah.
really not that bad, but she bought the tickets and then she said, I'd like for you to go. I'm like, okay.
You're all set.
Oh, thank you so much.
We
have an awesome staff here.
Got a teenage.
I've been serving on the ALC this year, and I'm telling you what, I didn't really realize what we have here, because I've been at Keller Williams so long. I think I took a lot of it for granted, but we have an amazing staff here. So I don't know all of you. I'm gonna get into this really quickly and move very, very quickly. Some of you may know more about luxury than others. This class is really designed more for kind of luxury 101, just to get you introduced to it. Some of it just happens by luck, whatever, God intervention, whatever you want to call it, as it did for me. I started working with the relocation company or with the the recruiters at Mercy a few years ago. And I fell into that. Somebody knew me, gave my name. That person went to a few people and asked about me, and they said good things about me. So if you could take away one thing from today, reputation is really a big deal in this industry. And Jeff, I know you guys can vouch for that. That's all you have. You have that and your good looks. And I can tell you as you age, the looks are like whatever. I mean, it is what it is. So anyway, but my name is Susan Herron. I was Susan Stowe. So a lot of people are like, who the heck is Susan Herron? Anybody know who Jeff Fry is? Jeff Fry had a whole transaction with him, a luxury transaction, by the way, because he was my counterpart at Cox Hospital. So he does a lot of the relo with Cox Hospital. And he didn't know it was me the whole time. So when I called him and he sent me his offer, I said, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to work with you, Jeff, and on and on and on. And then he showed up at the house the same time I did. And he's like, I didn't know that was you. So name change in the last couple of years. We rebranded our team. I manage Red Door. We're upstairs. So if you guys have any questions for me ever, please feel free to drop by. I did put my contact information on here. If you can't read it, let me know and I can get that for you. I'm excited to be here today. I love to teach. And luxury is just one of those things that either you like it or you don't. And it comes with its headaches and it comes with its benefits, bigger paychecks, bigger marketing tickets, pricing, and all that. So we're going to jump in today. All right. Everybody has this whole idea of what in the world are we doing here? So to define the luxury qualifications for our area, because it is different around the company or the country, it used to be $500,000 and above was luxury. Well, in our market, that's a decent house, right? Especially a few years ago, that was really an awesome house. Well, in California, you can get a shack under an overpass. So it was really unfair how it was defined. And so they've now allowed each market center to define what luxury is my understanding. So 4 transactions in 24 months, 700,000 and above. Okay. One of the things I did learn is if you list a house above 700 and it sells for less, I believe it still qualifies for all of the marketing and things like that. Correct? Am I right?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I saw you nodding. If
Well,
you
I
nod, I'm gonna be
I
like,
was
"She
nodding like,
knows better than I do."
okay, that's what that was.
Okay. Yeah, I do that too, and then sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't even agree with what they said. So we have some great benefits when you do luxury. Can you guys see good? You get signage and branding if you qualify for luxury. Now, the signage is available to you all as well. So if you have not sold luxury and you get a luxury listing, talk to the team here and they'll get you the signage. I don't have costs on that, but it is available to you. There's a KW Luxury Hub, all kinds of information on there, and a lot of networking that goes on, like social media pages and things like that, where you can ask questions. The luxury events are quite bougie, to be honest with you, crack me up because I'm just not that person at all. So I joke, I have a few designer purses, but you know, they're kind of tucked in the back of my closet. When you go to Keller Williams Family Reunion and Mega Camp, there are events there. So if you are interested in getting into luxury, there are panels, especially at Family Reunion, there are panels that you can attend. And they will talk crazy stuff about luxury, like, oh, I sold a $40 million house, and for their closing gift, I gave them a week on a private island and flew them there on my jet or whatever. That is not our real estate market here. So just be mindful that when you go, you hear some crazy things and come away going, oh my gosh, that's insane. I mean, these are people teaching the panels that have sold houses for movie stars and people like that. So there's a luxury magazine, and you can also get your house featured in that. And then there's just a lot of networking that goes on in luxury. Bragging rights are one of the funnest things. I would caution you though, you get into luxury, people start saying, oh, you don't want to bother selling my $250,000 house. I will tell you, over the years, it used to be the $89,000 house, remember? It used to be our bread and butter, the first-time home buyer. That still is what drives the wheels of my business. So don't ever think I want to dismiss everything else, and don't be careful, I would say, if you decide and you do break into the luxury market, that people don't see you as that only and you never have any other business. So, and like I said before, what's luxury nationwide is very different from what's here. So you just can go to California or Hawaii and Google some of the price points of stuff. And it's like, wow, we'll never see that in our market. And I'm okay with that. So I'm going to give you a couple of quick tips on how to get started in this industry. I would start previewing luxury listings. When I started as an agent, I grabbed a friend, we got coffee, we got in the car, and we made a route of houses that we were going to go look at. The problem with luxury is they're a little bit harder to get into. So you need to talk to the agent, be honest with them, tell them that you need to preview some luxury, and would they be willing to allow you to come and look at their listing. If they're vacant, it's going to be easier, but there's alarm systems, there's cameras, there's, so be mindful of all of that. Ask questions. There's just not a dumb question. You don't know what you don't know. So ask. If you don't know something about a luxury market or listing or anything like that, don't be afraid to ask. Ask the right people questions. Ask people who have done this before, and they'll give you might get 5 different answers from 5 different people, but you'll learn and you'll establish your own style. If you can shadow an agent, that's always a great way to learn. I don't think that I was ever brave enough to ask for that when I started out. So don't be afraid to ask an agent, hey, if you're going to go, or if you have a luxury listing, could I come with you sometime when you check on it? Could you walk me through the house and explain the finishes, explain the appliances and all that? They're not open houses typically. So if you're an open house person, it's pretty hard to find a luxury open house. And part of that is sellers want their discretion, and also, they have valuables and things. Don't assume that luxury is bougie. My kids hate that word, by the way, so I use it all that I can. And I have 7 kids, so I get to use it a lot. But don't assume that, because first of all, luxury clients are not always that way. And they're also not always looking for a property that is really fancy, what we would think of as luxury. So they may be horse people and they want a ranch style house, but it qualifies as luxury. So don't make assumptions. We do tend to make assumptions when we hear luxury.
What is bougie?
How would you guys describe bougie?
Well, it's short for bourgeoisie. I can't even say it. I took 7 years of French and I can't say it. Bourgeoisie.
It's super fancy, very snooty, that kind of thing.
Ostentatious, maybe.
There you
Like
go.
showing
I
off.
figured that's what it
Yes,
meant, but I
yeah.
just want to make sure.
Well, see, there's no such thing as a bad question. So now we know. Yeah, y'all go and use the word bougie and my kids will hate me. So, getting the appointment, it's a little bit hard to break into the luxury market. Some of it's luck. Some of it's just knowing the right person. It's very relationship based. So, it's just, like I said, my experience was I just knew the right person who knew the right person who said, give this person a chance. And I showed up the way I was told to show up. And I listened to what they were needing and then I followed through. And then I blew them out of the water with the customer service that I offered. And in fact, I just sold the house for the lady who introduced me and got my foot in the door. I just helped her sell her house and buy a house. And that relationship has stood all of what, 12 years now, at least. So anyway, come on in, sit down. Agent referrals, when you go to family reunion, if you go to luxury events, you hobnob with agents that are already doing this. Ask for ideas, ask them what works for them, ask them how they broke into the industry, ask for referrals, and that's a great way to do that. Referral checks on luxury properties are $100, so it's a good thing to do. I'm gonna give a plug to Family Reunion Mega Camp. One of the main reasons I go is to network with other agents. It is, if you haven't gone and you can afford to go, if you can afford to go, because we all want to be budget conscious. But if you can afford to go, it is a great place to get fresh new ideas and network with agents all over the world really now. And then your sphere, I'll tell you, when I started in real estate, I did not have a sphere and I certainly did not have a luxury sphere. So if you have those connections, great. If you don't, then you've got to find them somewhere else. Again, budget wise, I don't advocate country club memberships because that's just not my world. But if that's something that you already have access to, take advantage of that. That doesn't mean you walk around soliciting business at the restaurant. You go in, you get to know people, they find out what you do, and eventually you get those phone calls. So, insurance agents, everybody knows people that buy small houses and big houses, or agents do, insurance agents do. So don't be afraid to ask for that business from them. And then it does take some patience. I said begging because I did a lot of preparation for this class. And one of the things said, don't be afraid to just tell people, hey, I know you're interviewing other agents, but you'd be giving me an opportunity that I haven't had yet in this industry. And I will blow your socks off if you'll allow me the opportunity. So don't be afraid to do some shameless begging if you need. All right, getting the listing. There's a lot that goes into it, and you'll notice that a lot of what I say really should be for any client that you're trying to get. There's you'll look at this and go, well, wait a minute, I should be doing that with all of my clients. So keep that in mind. You should always know who your clients are. You want to stalk them on social media. You want to know what their hobbies are. You want to know what their family dynamic is. Sometimes it's a sad situation like a divorce or a death, and you need to know that stuff. Know what their job is, know what that entails for them. And be as nosy without being, weird. Yeah, I have buyers and sellers that are like, well, I looked them up and they do blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, why is that important to you? But people do want to know. You want to know because when you walk into their house, if you get that opportunity to be in front of them, you want to be able to tell them or know who you're dealing with and have a little bit of an idea of who they are. Do your research ahead of time. If you can find out who the decision maker is, that's a big deal. I have had clients where you would assume that the husband's the physician, he's the one that's making the money, and he looks at me and says, listen, I'm relocating my wife and kids here. You give her whatever the hell she wants because I'm taking my dream job. So you make her happy. And then I know that it's all about her. Then I've had clients who refer to their spouse as the wife. And well, anyway, I wanted to slap him by the end of the appointment, but whatever. But that's important to know. It's important to have both of them there too, when there's decisions being made, if they're both involved. Time frame can be a little bit longer for luxury. Sometimes people are really, it's a long-term decision. They're trying to explore, should we relocate the family? There's more involved than just moving across town and doing that. So know what their time frame is. Working with relocation company, that's a whole different animal. And if you are, you will be asked to, you'll be asked to do some reports and things like that on the listing, and you'll be up against some competition with some other agents. So I'm gonna tell you guys a funny story. I'll try to keep those really brief because I know we don't have a lot of time, but I was up against two agents, two other agents. They had a whole lot more experience than I did. I only got the appointment because I was working with Mercy and some of the relocation people. So they threw my name in the pot. I knew I had, in my opinion, I got in my head and didn't think I had much of a shot, but I showed up and did everything I could. I filled out all the reports, and I don't remember where I was at in the listing appointment rundown, if I was first, last, in the middle, whatever. But it turned out it was a gentleman who went to St. Louis to be the orthopedic specialist for the St. Louis Cardinals. So what a cool opportunity for me. They were selling their dream house that they never wanted to move from, but when this opportunity came up, he went, obviously, for that. Not only did he go, but he took staff with him. So keep in mind that sometimes people take their nurses with them. They take their assistants with them. People travel around the country and do that. I go to their house. It's very nice. I'm trying to act normal because it's not the kind of house that I would own. And it turned out that one of the agents, who's very prominent, or was especially at the time, told them that they needed to rake their carpet. They had shag carpet in one of their upstairs bedrooms, and it just didn't settle well with them. And it offended them, honestly. So you've got to find this balance between, you need to be candid with somebody, but I was a little bit more present and real than walking in going, oh, I just know all this stuff and you need to. So do you see what I'm saying? It was just comical. She called me later. She goes, we're listening with you. My gosh, this other agent told us we need to rake our carpet. Middle note, never tell anybody they need to rake their carpet. What is that anyway? Doesn't work long way. But do know if they're working with relocation, that is a big deal. And you will do, all the contracts are run differently, so you really need to be knowledgeable about that. If that ever does happen, we're more than happy to walk you through that. That's a whole different conversation. Who to contact? In some luxury price points, you'd be working with someone. If they're a physician, they may work nights. You need to know, who do I contact and when can I reach you? Be thoughtful of that. They're saving lives. If they're a physician, they're saving lives, and the last thing I want to do is disrupt their sleep. So I know, do I text your wife during this time or you at this time? If the wife is many times the physician or the one with the corporate job, so I'm communicating more with the husband. You just have to ask those questions and know. And then why are they selling? Obviously, we want to know that with all of our clients, but there are sometimes a lot of emotions in people relocating their entire family to go somewhere else to take a job. So there's a lot to be present for, I guess I would say, in that. So things to know before the appointment. Of course, you need to know all the stats, and I'm not talking about comps. I'm talking about, you need to dig really, really deep. Know who sold those houses in that neighborhood. If you're talking about a luxury neighborhood, you need to know, oh, so-and-so sold the house down the street for X amount of dollars. And did you know them? Yes. Have you been in their house? Yes, I had. And so you need to be a little bit more relational and be very familiar. If you've not been in the house, call the agent that sold that house and ask them anything that you possibly can. What was their situation? Why did they sell? Why did it sell lower than what I think the houses are in that area are worth? That kind of thing. Just ask questions. Preview, again, luxury is a little hard to preview, but do that as much as possible. Before you go look at their house, so you know what you're gonna be comparing it to. And then drive by any any of the comparables or any of the neighborhoods. I'd really, if they're gated, you need to have an address that you're going to. So I'm going to preview such and such a house. And go through those listings as much as you can, but even if you just drive the neighborhood and familiarize yourself. I had a client one time early on in my relationship with the hospital who wanted to look at houses. I was supposed to tour them around. Well, they get in the car and they want to see houses all day long. So I'm calling Krista and saying, help, I need houses to show them today in this price point. Again, you don't walk into an $800,000 listing just in 30 minutes typically. So Krista did her job amazingly and found me listings to look at. We were in Branson, we did all kinds of stuff. I took them to lunch. We went to the Titanic so the kids had something fun to do. And I was naive enough to be happy to do all this stuff, but it did secure me, my relationship at the time with the hospital, because they were really impressed that I was dumb enough to do all that. By the end of the day, I was so tired from being high energy, showing the properties, engaging and all that, that I lost my way around Highland Springs. So just to date myself, that was before GPS is really, and it was still kind of scrambled in Highland Springs. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it was like, we don't want anybody to be able to find their way around our neighborhood. So they did something to mess it up. I was so tired, I couldn't find my way. And I've got them in the car with me. So be familiar enough with the neighborhoods before you go show them. They were very gracious about it, but know how long they've owned, who owned the house before. A lot of times they'll reference so-and-so, we bought this house from so-and-so. Just know more than they know, or as much as they know, as much as you possibly can. Know who their neighbors are. You might look through tax records to find out who owns the houses around them, be familiar with that. And of course, what the house is sold, the neighbors near them. Know how their title is. A lot of people have houses in trusts, and you need to know how their house is on title. A lot of luxury people, they'll put their house in their spouse's name, one or the other, and they're not both on it. And so you need to know those things because there's additional paperwork that you're going to need for the title company if that does come up. I like to send flowers either ahead of time or an appropriate gift, depending on who it is. Or show up with flowers when I go to the listing appointment. It just is a nice way to send a handwritten note and a pretty bouquet of flowers saying, I'm looking forward to meeting with you all tonight at 6 p.m. You're confirming the appointment, you're telling them you're going to show up on time, and you're impressing them before you even walk in your front door. And then make sure that they're going to be there, because a lot of times they'll leave the husband or the wife there, and the other one is really the decision maker. So what happens is Mr. Seller over here is at work talking to all of his coworkers about who they should list their house with. So he's making appointments over here. The wife has heard that Susan Heron's a really nice lady, and she probably will give me all kinds of staging advice because she's heard my name from her girlfriends. So I go over for an appointment and I find out that the husband's not even there. And then 3 days later, I find out they're listing with somebody over here that the husband's been talking to the whole time. So if you can make sure they're both going to be there, it's a big deal. And there are advantages to being a female in this industry, and there's advantages to being a man or a male in this industry, however you want to look at it. If the wife got children and is relocating, I can connect really well with them. If the husband's the decision maker, I have to be a little bit more assertive typically. I don't intend to sound sexist at all, but it's just my experience is how it's been. By the way, this picture here is the house where they said to rake the carpet. That's a wine cellar in the basement. So don't let anything like that catch you off guard. It's like, oh, you have a wine cellar and it's got a lock on it. What are we keeping in there? How you show up at the appointment is really important. I do this with any listing, really. You want to make sure that you're parking where you're supposed to park. I park as far away from the front door, and I try to strategically place myself in the driveway if I need to, because a lot of these luxury neighborhoods, they don't let you park in the street. You just can't park in the street. That's a big no-no. So you're gonna park as far away from the main garage spaces in case one of the spouses is not home, then they can still get in it. The worst thing you want is to come in and you see that they had to park behind you. And now when you leave, they've got to back their car out because they couldn't get into their garage space. So think about those things when you go. Neighbors are nosy when they see people show up. What are you doing there? Just make sure that you're respecting privacy, because a lot of people in this price point don't want their neighbors to know all their business, and they may be exploring their options. So if you start telling people what's going on, they get alarmed and that kind of thing. It can cost you a listing, because if that neighbor knows somebody wants to buy that house, they're going to go straight to that seller and they're going to say, why do I need you? Because my neighbor has a buyer. So just be very careful. One, to respect their privacy, but two, to protect yourself. I always offer to remove my shoes when I go into a house, with the exception of, and I have lots of children, so I can say this. I went to a house one time with my designer heels on, and I had a very nice appointment later on in the day. This was a starter home, kids running everywhere, Jell-O on the floor. And I took my shoes off and I walked around with sticky feet all the rest of the day. So just be cautious about that. But I always offer to remove my shoes. It's just a courtesy thing to do. And if they have a white carpet, be mindful of that kind of thing. Be prepared for that too. I don't really like to walk around bare feet in front of my clients. So if I have socks or something with me, girls, you might want to think of that. Guys, you don't have that issue. But I get freaked out. I'm like, oh my gosh, my toes aren't done. What am I, what are they going to think of me? And they don't care less about that stuff. So show up on time, but be flexible. And what I mean by that is, if they're corporate, especially if they're in the medical field, they may have gotten a whole day of surgeries delayed all day long. So they've got to have a little bit of grace with you. If they're showing up late because they were at a nail appointment, that's a different thing. But sometimes it's just, hey, I could not get out of work. I'm sorry, I was in a meeting that ran over, or I was flying in or something. So be thoughtful and flexible. I usually try and allow a lot of time for luxury, because they might really want me to visit with them for a longer period of time. They might be running late. If you did not send a gift ahead of time, this is a really good time to show up. I think that it's impressive to show up with a bouquet of flowers. Girls, a beauty pageant with bouquet wrapped up with a pretty ribbon and tissue, something to hand when you walk in. I've been doing that for all of my listings, and they're always so touched that I thought to bring them something. And it just makes a nice touch. Has nothing to do with marketing, because it doesn't have your brand on it and all that. But I'm not thinking about that at that point. I just want them to know that I see them as individuals and I care, and it makes a difference.
Are there any other good ideas other than flowers?
Yes, alcohol. Seriously, now, I've had clients who don't drink alcohol, and I've told the lender, hey, just so you know, I know you bring a bottle of wine and wine glasses to closing. They do not drink alcohol. And by golly, that lender still showed up with a bottle of wine. And the sellers were like, well, or buyers, I think, at that one, they're trying to give me their bottle of wine, their closing gift, which I felt terrible, because I had even warned him. So know who your clients are. If you've done your research and you know what their hobbies are, then you can tailor something to them. I know a lot of people get hung up on, well, if it's not branded, I'm not marketing myself. I could care less about that, to be honest with you. It's about the relationship, and they just need to know that you care, and that you're not there the perception is we're all out there to just make a quick buck, and that's just not how this industry is. It's always about relationships, always, always.
Can I ask,
Yes.
just out of curiosity, my mom's a painter.
Mhm.
And we put together like little things like magnets that she hand paints, everything, so they're all originals.
Mhm.
And that's what I give for gifts, but I only do it when I get to go for the listing. You know, but does that work with this crowd to do stuff like that?
I would say just know who they are. I think
Okay.
in our mindset is it's gotta be super expensive. Cause I've got a luxury closing. I'm taking a stuffed animal to their kid because we had a joke the whole time about a hedgehog. And so I'm showing up with the stuff. The parents wouldn't let me buy her a hedgehog for a closing gift. So I was like, but I want to get her a hedgehog. And they're like, no. So I'm getting a stuffed animal. Just, you'll know if it's appropriate or not. And if you miss the mark, what's the worst thing that happened? You showed up with a gift. How can they be angry about that? I mean, if you didn't send the right, or bring something exactly appropriate. So the paintings and things like that might be a better closing gift at the end because, you know, they're saying goodbye to a house. And especially if they're selling or even buying, it works both ways, but we've done that some. It just depends on the client. So,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, and use your resources. We have, Alan Wright is our buyer's agent and his son-in-law does amazing stuff. And so we have him make Christmas ornaments for us or whatever is appropriate. This kind of stuff, depends who that is. I do not take branded stuff though. That's a gift for somebody. Hey, by the way, I just thought, you know, thanks, here's some Red Door stuff and wanted you to have that and appreciate your business, but that's not where I'm going with this gift at all. Compliment the house. Find something to compliment about the house. It smells nice. Oh, you've got a beautiful home. I love your neighborhood. I had a listing one time, an agent before me had gone in, again, bashed the house, walked in and said, oh my gosh, these paint colors will never work. And I walked in and I said, oh, you have a beautiful home. Was it my color preference? No. Was their home beautiful? Yes, it was their home, for heaven's sakes. I left to go get paperwork and came right back to list their house because they were, again, it was relational. Now, do I lie about it? No. If their house smells like dog or cat urine, we have to tell them that kind of stuff. But initially, make sure they understand, hey, I see you, I know you. I want you to understand, I appreciate that I'm here. So, okay. More stuff to think about. I always want to see the house when I walk in as quickly as I can. I'm looking to find out their personalities. I'm looking to learn about their home. I'm listening a lot through that walkthrough. I want to know how detail oriented they are. If they want to tell me the size of the toilets they put in their bathrooms, then I'm like, oh boy, I better know this stuff. They may just walk me through and say, here, you know what you're doing. And so that's telling me how I'm going to engage with them on down the road. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Personalities are coming out. I find out who the decision maker is. By the way, the orthopedic specialist, he was there, which impressed me a lot when we went because I knew he was a very busy man. His wife did all the talking. He did all the note taking. He followed me around behind and took all the notes. So I still to this day remember that because I was watching and I was listening for clues about who they were and how to connect with them and relate to them. Ask about the improvements. Be aware that some people say they've remodeled their kitchen and that was 25 years ago. Doesn't really qualify as a remodeled kitchen, but know what they've done and don't be afraid to ask. Hey, do you mind telling me when you put that shop in, I know values have gone up, but can you tell me how much you invested in that? Swimming pools. I mean, you can drop a chunk on a swimming pool and they want you to know what's involved in that. So, the tricky part is, do you show comparables when you go to the first appointment or do you come back the next day? I prefer to do it in two different appointments. Unless I sold them the house, I know them already, and I know the comparables are they're no brainers. I can tell that everything that I'm looking at is very comparable. Otherwise, I look at their house and then I go back and do my research. So you have to know that. I have gone with the assumption that I knew a value of a house. And as I'm talking to them, I'm pulling out my comparables because I realize they're not correct for that house. So be prepared to do that in 2 stages if you need to. Answer questions. I've got clients right now, they're not luxury, but they ask questions a lot. We haven't even listed anything for them. They're asking questions, and just be there 411 on everything. Answer anything. If you don't know the answer, tell them you don't know and get back with them on it. That will impress them more than you making up some bogus answer. So, you're probably going to be up against other agents for luxury unless you just happen to be the one person they said, don't list with anybody, but you know, so-and-so. And so you've got to be more prepared. You've got to know a lot more than the other agent does. You've got to be prepared with a marketing plan and things like that. So, and then be ready to explain your marketing plan. That's a big one. Luxury marketing is a little bit different. I remember exactly the listing where I decided there was not a price point that I would not use professional photography for years ago. For a while I said, well, anything this much and above, I'll use professional photographer. And it ate at me. I thought, and everybody deserves my best. So everybody that I list gets professional photography, unless we're talking about an investment property that if I put professional photos on there, it's actually gonna be a detriment to the listing selling or not. Do you guys know what twilight shots are? Okay, big deal. Funny stories I can't actually tell out loud, but I can tell you guys individually if you want to know after class. But this was a property that we sold, and the twilight shot, they do carry some weight. They're great for the first picture of a house. It gets people's attention. But that picture at the time cost me about $350 just for that one picture. So you're spending money before you ever list the property. These can only be done seasonally. So I'd say sometime in October through February or March, our photographer won't do them because the light is not conducive for that. So just be aware that you can't always do that, but it's a great thing to say, hey, I know we're listing your house in January and I can't get that twilight shot, but if your house isn't sold by February, we'll book that appointment. If they have a great backyard, you might do the front and the backyard. And so then you're talking about $700 or $800. And you haven't put a sign in the yard yet. So you've got to be thinking, when I do luxury, do I really, because you're spending some money, you know, flowers cost money. You don't show up with a little $4 bouquet from Walmart. You show up with a substantial bouquet of flowers. And this photography is not always the cheapest to do. Drone videos with either music. I own my own music that my son finally talked me out of using anymore. But it was specific. I actually bought the rights to it. So it was a sound that if people heard it, they knew that was our team sound. Or voiceover with somebody narrating, walking around the property. So if it's acreage, a drone video is great. You can get still shots, which are awesome. Everybody's doing those. But doing a drone video, like if you have a gate that opens up, you want to hire a professional videographer to do that for you. Have the gate open, have the drone fly in down the driveway and highlight all of the different features around the property. You want it short enough that people will watch the whole thing, and you want it long enough to make your sellers feel like you're really bragging about your property. So, and that time gets smaller and smaller. As time goes by, nobody watches videos more than a few seconds, but give your sellers more. 3D tours are a big deal. You can do drone videos in the house. That makes me nervous when people have expensive stuff, but it's possible. And then your marketing comments need to be not just featuring the house, but the amenities of the neighborhood. And this is where you can get bougie. There you go, Stephen, bougie. They want to hear you brag about about their house and their neighborhood. And they will be more than happy to tell you all of the wonderful things to brag on about their neighborhood too, so. You can't typically do open houses on these, so you're looking at a wine tasting. I've spent between $2,000 and $3,000 for a wine tasting on an upscale listing before. It didn't sell the house. It made my sellers really, really happy. And what would be a benefit of having a wine tasting and a listing like that?
Meeting the other
Meet
people.
the neighbors.
Exactly. And if your sellers are cool with it, you have to tell them, hey, you know, all your nosy neighbors are gonna come, because I'm gonna send an invite to them all, a postcard, a really nice, big postcard. They can't miss it. And as long as they're okay with that, it is really a great way, because you're not just selling the house, but you're selling yourself. Keep that as a thought in the back of your head, but it's the same thing as an open house. Why do we do open houses? We want to sell the listing, of course, but we want to meet new buyers, right? So it's a great way to say, hey, look, I know what I'm doing. And this is not where I would run to Sam's and grab their platters of snacks. This is where you hire somebody to do it for you if you don't know how to do it yourself. And International Wine Center has, they have people that can help you, or they can come and do the wine tasting for you. It really doesn't have to be expensive wine or anything like that. Just make the presentation really something awesome, and then market the heck out of that. You're not just marketing the house, but you're saying, look what I do when I list your luxury property. This is the stuff I'm going to do to help sell it. Okay, you've gone to the appointment. You, at that point, you may or may not know if you're up against other agents. So you've got to go do your research and you run your comps. Call other agents. At that point, you're going to go, they're referencing a house down the street. You go look it up, call that agent, say, what was the story? Tell me about the amenities of this house. You need to dig deep. Did those people put their pool in, or was that put in before they sold it? So you have all the knowledge, because your sellers are going to tell you stuff that you need to be a whole lot more versed than they are, if you possibly can. I like to meet in person. I like to set another appointment. Of course, people are busy, so that might not be possible. So if they say no, just email us what you think or text us, that's okay. But if I can get back my foot in the door again, that's another relational opportunity to sit and say, what other questions do you have? Side note, you list a house, it's not going well, or it's not selling, and they reach out to you and say, hey, we want to visit with you. Or instead of a phone call or a text, show up at their house, ask when you can come by and sit with them at their kitchen table. Even if they're upset with you because their house hasn't sold, it's a big deal not to be afraid to show up and say, let's talk. So I saved a listing one time by doing that. And the relationship stood for years because of that. I said, hey, I know it's really busy. It was Friday afternoon before Easter, and my parents were driving in from out of town. And I was trying to get a house with 5 kids ready for my parents and to visit and get all the Easter stuff going. And I stopped everything, went to their house, sat down at their table, and we talked. And I walked away, and they were happy. And I didn't have my whole weekend ruined because I wasn't wondering what they were upset about. So show up. It's a big deal to show up in person if you at all can. Couple of things just to highlight, make sure that you know the format they want to communicate. If there's a spouse that's in surgery saving lives, the last thing you want to be doing is sending them texts throughout the day. Ask them what they want. I had a client who looked at houses between his cases at the hospital. So he's on the phone telling the nurses what to do to keep this person going until he could be back to start their surgery. I'm like, we need to leave now. And he's like, no, I'll look at this house and then I can go. So I just had to learn how to be really, really flexible. Like, let's look and then we'll do the investigating later. But find out how they want to communicate and who you need to communicate with. I happen to be very conscientious of texting people from the opposite sex. So I will put the wife and the husband on a text together if I can. That's my preference. That way there's never anything why did you text my husband that? Or what were you meaning by that? If you're texting, things can get messed up really fast. So just be careful with that. But just make sure you know, do they want emails? What's the best way? What email's best? They might have a business and a personal email. Make sure you're getting the right information for that. Never bash another agent. It's easy to do. It's so easy to do when you find out they're interviewing so-and-so and you know that agent does not have a great reputation or you've interacted with them before, they don't do a great job. Just don't do it. It's just not cool. It's actually against our code of ethics, but people do it anyway. Don't do that. Try and stay one step ahead of your sellers or buyers. They are usually very savvy. They want to know what's next. Always make sure that they don't have to ask you what's going on. You want to be telling them. Dress the part. I can tell you that my first interview, when I started working in luxury was not with any clients at the time. But I was told the expectation of how I should show up and I listened to that and it set me apart from the other people that were in the room at the conference table. So dress up, show up. You don't have to dress expensive. I know we all think, oh, designer and all that. No, I've got clothes from Target. It's okay. You can make it look nice and you don't have to have expensive everything. I had somebody, $800,000 buyer, and they complimented my shoes from Target. I'm like, oh. So, but just be well groomed, be put together, present yourself well, and you know. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the listings. So let's talk about buyers. Know who your buyer is. It's a big deal. They are usually corporate in luxury. They've done something really well and very successful in life to get to the point where they're buying a luxury home. So know who they are, and don't assume again that they're just fancy people. I've worked with vice presidents and presidents of company, and they're like, please don't show up in your heels this weekend. We're going to be in flip flops and shorts, and that's how we expect you to show up. Don't do that, but I will dress down. So know who they are. Be really flexible with showing times. If it's somebody who's corporate or they're in the medical field, they have this time they can look at houses. So move heaven and earth to do that. I had to get times on lockboxes extended for some of my clients because the only time we could look at houses was at 9 o'clock at night. So, you know, be flexible and be willing to accommodate them, whatever you have to do. I know that we're in a market where we have not looked at houses before we show them, but on luxury, there's just too many doors in a luxury house to walk in and not know what you're looking at. And you don't want to open up a door thinking it's a large pantry in it to have a room closet or something. So if you can at all do that, preview ahead of time. If the agent says they don't really want anybody coming until the showing, then that's okay. And let your buyer know, hey, I tried to preview this for you, but the seller just really didn't want extra showings or they couldn't accommodate us. But we are going into the market, correct me, Jeff, if I'm wrong, where we're going to have time to preview houses again, I think. And so we need to get back to that, because we owe it to our clients more than, hey, show up in 10 minutes. We got to write an offer right now. Those days will go away and we need to be willing to do the extra work. Real estate has been kind of a quick buck and away the last few years, and it will not be. Eventually, you will be showing multiple houses. I know we've written a lot of offers, but you need to know what you're showing, and especially in luxury, you just don't want to be surprised. And you don't want to waste somebody's time to go show a house that really is not up to par. So keep that in mind. Be knowledgeable about each home. I got in a hurry. One of the last luxury clients I worked with, we walked in, he goes, Susan, how many square feet is this house? And I'm going, I couldn't remember because I just had not looked at it enough to really be familiar. And I was really embarrassed. And then we went to the worst thing is we went to the next house. He's like, hey, how many square feet is this? I'm like, Didn't know again. So, I mean, I had it on my detail sheet, but I hated to look down. I should have been saying, as I was opening the house, this house is 6,025 square feet and it has blah, 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 blah. And this is why I think you might like this one. So just be knowledgeable, do your homework ahead of time, take time to research what you're showing. It does matter in this price point. Listening, even people in luxury don't know what they want. I had a client who walked into a house, said, don't show me a house with pools. I won't buy one with pools. Finally, she insisted on seeing this house with a pool. And we walked in and she slapped me in the stomach with her hand, bam. Why didn't you show me this house earlier? I said, because it has a pool. She goes, this is my house. I listened to her and it backfired on me. So just keep in mind that they don't know what they want always. We have to interpret what they're looking for. I heard you say this was important to you, but the last 3 houses you've sent me don't have a shop. Are you willing to build a shop? Yes. Okay, great. That opens up a lot of possibilities. So just always be listening. I look forward to the days where we have clients back in our cars with us. We got away from that during COVID. We met, we masked up, we as little contact as we could. And I used to have clients in my car all day long to stop for lunch. And by the end of the weekend or day or whatever, I knew them so well. We had inside jokes. We were, laughing about stuff. And I knew their kids. I knew what was going on. I knew when their kids needed snacks. I had water for the kids and snacks for the kids and all that. I kind of miss those days where you really built the relationship. Now we pull up, we show the house, we leave, and we either write an offer or we don't. So be ready to investigate and get to know your people a little bit better. Be prepared to stop for lunch, buy dinner, always be the person that picks up the tab. I have had clients who insisted on it, and I've gotten really good at looking at the server and say, get this to me out to the yeah, I don't do that. But I just make sure the server knows I'm in charge and I want to pick up this tab for them. It's just a nice touch. If you can't afford it, then here's what you do. Hey, I've got a few phone calls I need to make. Seriously, I'm dead serious. You're like, hey, I'm really tight on my budget. You don't tell them that. I've got a few appointments or a few phone calls I need to return. I'm going to give you guys a lunch break. And then we'll meet back in an hour and a half. Does that work for you? And then you go do your thing and then come back and meet up with them. You don't have to spend the money, but if you can, pick up the tab if you can. I had a couple that wouldn't sign a buyer's agreement with me one time when we met at the office. They said, we don't know you well enough. We're not going to sign that commitment. I said, well, I had 2 days blocked out to show them houses. I said, well, by the end of the day today, I kind of need to know if you're invested in me or not, because I blocked out my whole weekend for you. And while I was in the restroom at lunch, or probably telling the server to make sure I got the bill, they signed the buyer's agreement. And I didn't know that. We got back to the office and they handed it to me and said, we're super happy to work with you. And so anyway, just take time to slow down. If they want to stop and pick up something in a drive-through, that's okay. I've had very high-end clients who are like, no, let's just run through Panera and grab something and let's keep moving. So just be flexible. Don't be wowed by the finishes in a house. It's really easy to walk into a very nice house and go, I wouldn't want to live here, but they may not like it. And so you have to say, what do you think? And be very matter of fact about it when you're, drooling because I can't do anything to live in this house. Why wouldn't you? But it may not be their style. So be normal, I would say, when you walk into a house. It's pretty fun to go look at them and then you come home and go, oh, live here?
That's what I'm afraid of. I might accidentally move.
Yeah. Well, it is, a lot of times I went home and went, wow, I'm so glad I'm in that house, because, those are things to think about. Is your wife going to clean this, or are you going to hire somebody to clean this for? Because this is a lot of house. So, buyers and sellers, luxury, all of our clients deserve our attention. A lot of my luxury clients really expect a lot from me. And if you cannot give that to them, they will move on. So I'm not talking about groveling or anything. I'm just talking about being available If you have questions, please don't hesitate. I tell my clients, when the market was so crazy that if you didn't go look at the house the first 2 hours it was on the market, you missed out. I would say, if you see that listing at 3 o'clock in the morning, because I found one of the houses I bought personally at 3 o'clock in the morning. If you see that house at 3 in the morning, I want you to text it to me right then, because in the morning when I get up, I want to know I need to make that house a priority to go show, and I can start doing my research before I even show up at the office. So I let them know. Now, do I have some boundaries with my clients? Yes. I recently told a very high-end client, I'm sorry, that's Mother's Day. No, I cannot meet you to show you the house that you're buying. I've got plans with my family. And they went, and we were on a group text. She was going, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just asked her to work on Mother's Day. So I don't mind doing that, because if you do, there's a balance there. But if you let people know, hey, I also have a life. Rarely are clients going to say, I can't believe you wouldn't do that. They're going to actually respect you more when you say, I've got plans that night, I can't do that. So be sure to give them the attention that they need and respond accordingly. After the sale, one thing, and I don't know if it was in here, it might have been, but communicate with them throughout the process. Luxury homes typically take longer to sell. As a generalization, they take longer to sell. So what happens is their house is on the market for a week, and you've done all of the things that you need to do to market a house in the first weekend. They want to know what you're going to do the next week, and the week after that, and the week after that. So I like to set up a time every week. Hey, are you free at 3 o'clock every Friday afternoon? Yes. I'm going to call you or stop by, and we're going to sit and talk about everything that happened that week or didn't happen that week. We had 0 showings. Why did that happen? Well, this is a season right now, like these few weeks, when you say market kind of slows down, everybody's on vacation. After 4th of July, things typically pick back up. So I know those things from being in the industry for a while, but make it a point to talk to them every week. You can send them an email, you can send them all that stuff, but if you're not communicating with them, they may not see the email. They may think you've gone off and you're not doing anything to market their house. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is what we're going to be doing this next week. I'm actually starting the process to plan the wine tasting that we talked about when I listed your house. Is there a date that does not work for you all for that? And then I let them know, hey, this is where we're at. We've ordered the postcards. We've got the marketing going. What do you think? And get them a little bit more involved. But that time, that regular time every week for them to expect a phone call from them and make sure you call at that time, it's a big deal. I check in with my clients while they're under contract. How are things going? There's nothing that I need to be doing at all, but I want to know how they're doing. How are the kids handling this move? Hey, how's the wife handling? You've moved on and you're already doing your new job out of state. How are you handling it? Do you need to go have a glass of wine? Do you need to go get your nails done or whatever? Guys, I don't advocate doing that with clients, but just stay present and be mindful that there's a lot going on. I just moved my family across town in Nixa, which isn't that big of a town. It was exhausting. It was absolutely physically, mentally, spiritually exhausting to do all of the things. And I was my own agent. So it put all of that back in perspective for me. What does it mean to stop by and say, I'm going to bring the meal to you, the night that you close on your house? When is your family coming over to help you unpack or move? I'll provide dinner for everybody that night. And pizza's okay if that's what they want, but do something a little nicer than that. Let them know that you care. I got a text from a family recently. They took a picture at their table eating the food that I'd taken, and their in-laws were there and their outlaws were there, I think. And then the kids and everybody was so grateful for that meal. Just a little touch that really went a long way. And be ready to provide contractors. They may want to take the house that you and I think is absolutely beautiful and completely remodel it. You need to go, okay, I'll send you my granite guy, or I'll send you my, did you have a question or did you? Okay. Because you've got to be the 411, especially in the luxury. Be mindful who you send. And I almost always reach out to the contractor that I'm recommending and say, I gave you their number. And I want you to know that they're expecting, or they're gonna be calling you. That way, they're expecting a phone call. They can be professional. They know that I'm asking my sellers or buyers for feedback from how that all went. And it just solidifies that relationship. So the last thing I like seeing is people on social media saying, I need a plumber. I'm like, I'm your realtor. Why didn't you call me? I know 10 plumbers. So make sure that they know you're accessible for all of that and you don't go away after the sale. And then don't be afraid to take a hedgehog as a gift. Anyway, we kind of went through that. Actually, we're right at noon. So does anybody have any questions really quickly? I feel like I flew through that so fast. But is there anything, any ahas or any questions that you have?
Would you mind maybe, is there a way to share those slides with us?
Absolutely. I will email me at susanheron@kw.com and we'll get a copy of it for you. And I'm really here to help. I'm not here all day. I'm typically here most mornings till about 11 or 12, and then I make my appointments in the afternoon. And I do have kids. So sometimes I'm not just doing real estate, but I'm doing kids stuff. But I'm definitely here to help answer anything. Don't be scared of luxury. It's fun. It can be a little taxing, but it can be a lot of fun. And it's just a neat thing to say. Don't be afraid to brag too. If you sell one of these houses, like, look, I sold this luxury listing, because we all want to celebrate with you. It's a big deal. So. One other thing I didn't have in here was commissions. Sometimes when you're up against another agent, they'll start offering to reduce commissions. You need to decide if you're willing to do that or not. Sometimes I say no. I literally secured full 6% on both sides, no questions asked. I actually knew that they had other agents who offered to reduce commission to get the listing, and they still wanted to do business with me. So, but if it comes down to it and you're willing to do it for less, that's your prerogative to do that. The paychecks are bigger. So the flip script of that is saying, okay, so which one of these marketing things do you not want me to spend money on? Because we don't get on $1 million listing, we don't bring home $30,000, right? We pay taxes on it. We pay our cap and royalty. In my case, I pay a team. I pay for the photography. I've got over $1,000 in photography fees before I even put a sign in the yard. So wine tasting, if you want to go without that, we can talk about that. But I really want to give you everything that I've promised you. So if you ever have an objection about that, one of the things I say is I really want to give you the full experience when we work together. If we get to the end of this and you feel like I haven't done my job, at that point, I'll be happy to discuss commission with you. Usually by then they've kind of forgotten about that and they're like, yeah, we're so happy to pay you the amount. So every situation is different. Some people are really going to negotiate that commission, and this is so tacky, but don't pour yourself out. This is not an industry to just say, okay, whatever it takes. But if you really need to do something like that, be flexible and be willing to do it, because you get bragging rights on the listing too. If you do have to do something like that, you get bragging rights, and once you get that one luxury under your belt, and you've got something to say, look, I've got an abundance of luxury pictures from homes that we've sold, that it wasn't hard for us to go through and find a few that were really nice for the photos for this. So, and I'm here to answer any questions. So anything else?
What's the typical split that the relocation company will take?
That depends. It can be 30, it can be 40, it can be 45. So, and what typically happens with that money is they turn around and they give it back to the buyer or the seller as a credit for the moving expenses. So while it's frustrating, and I think it's just another person grabbing money out of the pot, the sellers and buyers are usually really happy to work with relocation company. What happens after that is I get a lot of complaining after that, saying that relocation company didn't do a damn thing for me. I'm like, well, they took 45% of my commission, and I don't say that, but that's what happens. And or the movers broke a bunch of their stuff and they can't get reimbursed, things like that. So, all right, Paulina is here and she has a social media.
Yep, it's Capture Leads with social media for Ignite.
And she's where it's at on social media. I'm jealous of all her, because she does all her stuff. Even Paulina, my husband's like, who's Paulina? She's like always on Facebook doing stuff. So if you guys want to learn from her, it's a good time to do.
Are you excited for Ignite? Kidding or not?
Yeah, anybody who wants to stick around for Ignite, this is gonna be a great class, I promise you. Making a lot of progress today. Hey, do you want to plug this in up there? Awesome, I'll get the Zoomsies pulled up.
How are you?
It is on Zoom
He's
already.
not. Shannon, you need to stop the recording.
Thank you.
Something like 3-5.
Do something a little higher.